Imelda Zamboanga Sibugay, second son of Pastor and Mrs. Tito and Selma ALQUIZA. He took a Bachelor of Theology at the College of Theology, Central Philippine University, Haro, Iloilo City. He graduated as cum laude in 2009 and awarded with Alma Mater Alton Bigelow Memorial Award, the prestigious award given by CPU to a student who excelled both in academic and Christian disciplines. In the same year, he was chosen as one of the outstanding students of the Philippines, Region 6. In 2015, he took and passed the licensure examination for teachers. He also finished his Master of Arts in Teaching, major in Social Science at Philomer Christian University at Rojas City, Capiz in 2016. In the year 2021, he finished his Juris Doctor degree at the College of Law, Colegio de Purísima Concepción. He is married to Dr. Jessica Onato Alqueza, a dentist by profession. They had 3 children, Ross Christian, Stephen Joshua, and Jessica Bethel. He worked as a senior pastor of Astorga Baptist Church, Astorga, Dumaro, Capiz, for over 10 years. He is the founding pastor of Nasagod Evangelical Church, Barangay Lanot in Rojas City, Capiz, a church which was established on February 20, 2022, in obedience to God's Great Commission found in Matthew 28, 18-20. On April 14, 2023, he passed the bar examinations conducted by the Supreme Court of the Philippines, and currently he works as a technical writer, policy researcher, and Capiz Youth Development Officer of the Provincial Government of Capiz Rojas City. He's a Christ servant. Please help me welcome Reverend Attorney Stephen T. Alqueza. Reverend.
Thank you, Pastor, for that generous introduction. To our moderator, Ma'am GJ, thank you so much. To the President of SRAPS International Incorporated, Ms. Carmela M. Salenga, ma'am. The Vice President, Pastor Rodiel Lumaad. The Assistant Dean, College of Arts and Sciences, Education, Dr. Michael Demi Apirocho. And also, Dr. Roxanne Rubik Remorosa, the Executive Consultant of SRAPS and PRISM International Incorporated. Dear educators, good morning. Hope that all is well with you, despite of the many challenges, the flooding, the earthquake, but we believe that God has prepared for us today to learn another aspect of this curriculum. Particularly, I will be giving you this topic, knowledge, legal knowledge and ethics, their significance for effective educational management. This is in relevance to the curriculum in TESOL. So this is my part that I have to consider phase 1, the introduction to TESOL, and its objective is to enable students, TESOL learners, to acquire a deeper understanding of the course, its requirements and expectations. In phase 4, we have classroom disaster management. So we will deal more and consider the law about disaster risk reduction. And the objectives of this, in this phase 4 of the curriculum, one is to develop effective disaster plans tailored for large classrooms, demonstrating proficiency in leading in evacuations and adapting strategies for diverse needs. Utilize technology for organized crisis responses, instructing a culture of preparedness among students and staff, and evaluate and enhance safety measures proactively. So I would like to highlight the word proactively addressing potential risks to ensure a resilient and secure learning environment. As to the presentation outline, I would like to delve on this. First is the definition of terms. We have also the significance of legal knowledge and ethics, and the application for effective classroom or educational management. Now, we go to legal knowledge. It refers to an activity of mind, a way of doing something with the rules and cases and other materials of law. So we consider the laws, even those decisions of the court, the Supreme Court, an activity that is in itself not reducible to a set of directions or any fixed description. But to simply define the word legal knowledge, it refers to the awareness of the legal information, the background of a particular law, or simply the knowledge of the law. Ethics, on the other hand, in broad sense, refers to the rules of behavior based on ideas about what is morally good and bad behavior. It is that branch of philosophy dealing with right and wrong and the morality of motives and ends. A set of moral principles, a theory or system of moral values. In every field of discipline, we abide with specific and particular ethics or the rules of conduct that we have to observe. So we as lawyers, we have ethics for lawyers, and also for teachers, we also follow the code of conduct for professional teachers. Educational management refers to the administration of educational system, and which includes planning, organizing, and managing human and material resources in order to achieve the predetermined objective, the vision, goal, and mission of the educational institution. As to the following terms, it relates to disasters. We have hazard. It is a dangerous phenomenon, substance, human activity, or condition that may cause loss of life, injury or other health impacts, property damage, loss of livelihood and services, social and economic disruption, or environmental damage. Disaster, a very familiar word that we always hear, it is a serious disruption of the dysfunctioning of a community or a society involving widespread human, material, or economic and environmental losses and impacts, which exceeds the ability of the affected community or society to cope using its own resources. So disaster caused loss of lives, property, and even destruction to nature. Risk means the combination of the probability of an event and its negative consequences. Mitigation is the structural and non-structural measures undertaken to limit the adverse impact of natural hazards. And the government now works on how to improve, how to mitigate the devastating impacts of disaster. Vulnerability means the characteristics and circumstances of a community, system, or asset that make it susceptible to the damaging effects of a hazard. Emergency is an unforeseen or sudden occurrence, especially danger, demanding immediate action. And response means to provide immediate assistance. Now, we go to the significance of legal knowledge and ethics. I would like to borrow the words of Justice Paras in his book, The Civil Code of the Philippines Annotated. And I quote, "If an inventor in a moment of generosity should favor you with the gift of a complicated, newly invented machine, how would you make it work? The answer is simple. Follow his instructions. Follow the machine's manual instructions and the machine will work. Disregard these instructions and the machine will simply refuse to function. How can the human machine, this strange and lovable complex machine called man, with its mortal body and its eternal soul, be made to function well? The answer is also simple. Follow the instructions of its maker. Unless this is done, the human machine will become a futile, senseless object, utterly incapable of fulfilling its destiny. These instructions from the maker we call the law. Okay? The law. And that is what we are going to reflect in this topic. Next slide. Now, Article 3 of the Civil Code of the Philippines provides, ignorance of the law excuses no one from compliance therewith. During the time of the Jewish people in the Old Testament, God gave them specific laws. And I believe you are all familiar with the 10 Commandments. And I'm not really sure that you memorize all the 10 Commandments. But the Jewish people had 613 laws. These were written in the books of law they called Torah. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. These 613 laws, including the 10 Commandments incorporated in these laws, were memorized by the Jews because they have to follow and comply with these laws in order not to face consequences from God, severe consequences. In the Philippines, we have also thousands of laws. And the Civil Code of the Philippines emphasized that ignorance of the law excuses no one from compliance therewith. In Latin legal maxim, it says, ignorantia liges non excusat. Without this maxim, abuses will increase and evil men will make our social existence unbearable. This world will turn into chaos without compliance and knowledge of the law. So in order for us to have knowledge of the law, to be familiar with the law, laws must be publicated. And laws, according to Article 2 of the Civil Code, it shall take effect after 15 days following the completion of their publication in the official gazette. I don't know also if you're still familiar or you're reading official gazette, because in our days, we have now cell phones. We do not entertain usually news and reading newspaper. And unless it is otherwise provided, this means that if a particular law states that this will take effect 20 days or 60 days, so that one will be followed. When we say ignorance of the law, we refer not only to the literal words of the law itself, but also to the meaning or interpretation given to said law by our courts of justice. And this is important that as educators, we should not stop learning, reading, and learning from others also. And I believe that you are all expert to your fields, but we still need to listen and relearn some things so that our knowledge will be encompassing to different fields. Republic Act number 7836. This is the Philippine Teachers Professionalization Act of 1994. It gives requirements to applicants who wanted to be admitted to licensed professional teachers. And among the requirements to take the exam is the applicant must be in good health and of good reputation with high moral values. High moral values. has not been convicted by final judgment by a court for an offense involving moral turpitude. So you have one applicant will have a dilemma if he or she is convicted with murder, perjury, or other offenses, robbery, kidnapping, graft and corruption, offenses that involve moral turpitude. And also, in paragraph E, Article 2 of this law, the Board of Professional Teachers' function is to prescribe or adopt a code of ethical and professional standards for the practice of teaching profession. Such ethical standards, rules, and regulations to take effect 60 days after its publication in the official gazette or in any newspaper of general circulation in the Philippines. With this law came out the Code of Ethics for Professional Teachers. And this does not only cover the public sector, but this law also allowed us to abide, even we are in the public sector or public education, private education, and teachers are duly licensed professional who possesses dignity and reputation with high moral values as well as technical and professional competence in the practice of their noble profession. Take note of this noble profession. We are in a profession where we are worthy of honor and respect. And as teachers, they strictly adhere to, observe, and practice this set of ethical and moral principles, standards, and values. Every teacher shall actively ensure that teaching is the noblest profession and shall manifest genuine enthusiasm and pride in teaching as a noble profession. Every teacher, Section 2, Article 8 of this law, shall recognize that the interest and welfare of learners are of first and foremost concern and shall deal justifiably and impartially with each of them. We are responsible for every learner under our custody. And our foremost concern is the welfare, the best interest of the students under our care. Here in TESOL, students and learners are being taught not only with the knowledge and insights on how to teach correct English to speakers of other languages, but more importantly, for the learners to observe high moral standards and principles in the teaching profession, whether we work here in the Philippines or we have opportunity to work abroad, like Pastor Rodel and Ma'am Gigi. We have this set of standards that we follow. Through this, they can effectively and efficiently serve the best interest of learners. It has corresponding liability if we do not abide with this law and the Code of Moral Principles. In Article 2180 of the Civil Code, it provides, lastly, teacher or heads of establishments of arts and trades. So it specifies there the arts and trades, heads of establishments of this kind of institutions. They shall be liable for damages caused by their pupils and students or apprentices so long as they remain in their custody. The responsibility treated of in this article shall cease when the persons herein mentioned prove that they observe all the diligence of a good father of a family to prevent the damage. Because we have the degree of diligence. If one is in charge and his business is in the common carrier, so there is a higher degree of diligence, especially in the field of or the business of transportation. The degree of diligence must be higher because lives are involved, not only property. I want to share to you this case. Palisok versus Brillantes, 41 Scra 548. The facts: during recess time, one student of a technical vocational school fatally injured another at the school's laboratory room. Question: are the president of the school and the instructor or teacher concerned liable for the death of the student? So this was during recess time, and one student fatally injured and killed another student. Are the president and teacher liable for the death of the student? Could anybody give an answer? Anybody from the group? Are they liable?
Who wants to answer? Can you please open your mic and also put your answer in the chat box? Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, good morning, Pastor.
Yes, good morning.
Uh, I think the teacher or the staff, with regards to the question, they are liable
Okay.
for what happened to the student.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the reason?
The reason is that I guess it is the responsibility of the teacher or of the personnel to be able to see to it that students are safe in their classrooms.
Yes, indeed. So thank you so much for that answer. And of course, the Supreme Court said, yes, they are liable. They are liable under the provisions of Article 2180 of this code. Prostitutes in said article, so long as they remain in their custody, refers to the protective and supervisory custody that the school and its heads or teachers exercise over the pupils and students for as long as they are at attendance in school, and it includes recess time. So thank you, ma'am, for that answer. And how can the school officials concerned avoid being liable for the death of the student? The answer is still in that article that they, yeah, okay, they should have proved that they observed all the diligence of a good father of a family to prevent the damage or to prevent that death. There must be a clear rules and regulations, policy of the school, and all the teachers, the heads of the institution must legally abide with these rules and regulations or policy. So long as they can prove that they observe this legally, so they can be exonerated from any liability. So, thank you. Now we go to the application for effective educational classroom management. Relevance to phase 4 of the curriculum. Why do we need to give importance to disasters and include this in our curriculum? Disaster cause the destruction of communities, death of millions, and collapse of people's livelihoods. So no matter how we plan out our teaching strategies, but if our learners are affected by disaster, so we cannot fulfill these objectives in our institutions. The Philippines is one of the world's most disaster-prone nations. The exposure of the Philippines to disaster can be attributed to its geographical and physical characteristics. Earthquakes are common and volcanoes abound based on the fact that the country is in the Pacific Ring of Fire. The Philippines also absorbs the full strength of typhoons that develop in the Pacific Ocean. We are prone every year. Thousands of lives lost. Filipinos suffered because of the devastating effect of disasters in our country. Republic Act number 10121, or the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010, DRRM Act, or we call DREAM Act. It is a new law which transforms Philippines' disaster management system from disaster relief and response towards disaster risk reduction. It repealed Presidential Decree number 1566 way back in the Marcos regime, which was in 1978. Under the old law, disaster management centered only around the hazard and the impacts of disaster. And our state assumed that disaster cannot be avoided. It's there. We cannot avoid that. And we will surely experience that every year. Hence, the response of the government is mostly reactive rather than proactive. Mostly on relief response, and after the effect or after the calamity hit a particular place, there you can see our government responding to the emergency needs of our countrymen. But under the new law, the DREAM Act, the government shifts its focus from disaster response to disaster risk reduction, DRR. This now puts more emphasis on strengthening people's capacity to absorb stress, maintain basic functions during a disaster, and bounce back better from disaster. So you have your focus, you're not panic, you are prepared because the government has already put emphasis on capacity building, on how to prepare for any calamity. The acquisition of knowledge with regard to this particular law is so significant, and that the national government was eager to integrate DRR into school curricula through the Department of Education, CHED, TESDA, NYC, the DOST, DENR, DILG, BFP, the Department of Health, DSWD, and other agencies of the government. And the mandate that DRR will be included in lessons for high school and college. It will be implemented in both public and private educational institutions, including formal and non-formal education, vocational schools, programs for indigenous peoples, and out-of-school youth. Universities are not exempted to this. Academic institutions, both private and public, must observe. Now, the situation, why our government focused on this, as what I have shared a while ago, that we are disaster risk. We are vulnerable to almost all types of natural hazards because of our geographical location. We are prone to typhoon. Okay. You can read that. It is a rapidly rotating storm system characterized by a low pressure center, strong winds, and a spiral arrangement of thunderstorms that produce heavy rains. And just go over with that, the classification of tropical cyclone. And it is also important to know about the maximum wind speed, because that could also be the basis of our preparation for any hazards that a typhoon or a tropical cyclone may be brought to us. It also caused flood. Flood can be caused from natural and human activities. Intense and prolonged rainfall because of the weather disturbances, high tide, tsunami, storm surge, and also flood caused from human activities, increased urbanization and coastal development, informal settlers, indiscriminate dumping of garbage, deforestation, blasting, failure of dams, as what had happened for the past days and week. So what to do before, during, and after the flood? These are some practical tips for us to remember. As educators, I believe that we are already familiar with this basic preparations before the flood. We have this 72-hour survival kit. What is important is we have prepared ready-to-eat food, batteries, cell phone, flashlights, first aid kit in response to any emergency situations. Secure important things, documents, and files, especially if our educational institutions are situated in flood-prone areas. So we have to secure this. As a community, because before the storm, before any typhoon or flood, there are already warnings from our government agencies. So we have to prepare as a community, make evacuation, emergency plan, and disaster response in collaboration with other agencies. Conduct disaster drills in schools, community, to prepare students and staff, individuals for the actual situation during calamities. So we have to observe fire drill, earthquake drill, or flood drills in our communities and schools. For our students, even the school officials has to comply with this. Before the flood, identify evacuation centers in your area. This may include school buildings, church, gymnasiums, and covered courts in our respective communities. And what to do during the flood? So stay inside your homes or evacuation areas. Eat your food. And this is also to avoid any untoward accidents and also to prevent from any diseases brought by flood. What to do after the flood? Report any damage to property in your area to proper government agency. Broken electricity lines and open wires can cause accident or worse, death. So we have to observe the simple tips after the flood. What about earthquake? In Agusan area, there was a 5 magnitude earthquake that hit yesterday. It is a tremor or trembler, which is the result of a sudden release of energy in the Earth's crust that creates seismic waves. Here's the situation. If you receive a text message at 9 o'clock in the morning, an advisory from PHIVOX that a magnitude 7 or a magnitude 9 earthquake will hit Davao, Agusan, or will hit Capiz. I'm in Capiz now. What should you do? What should we do? So what to do before, during, and after earthquake? These are part of the disaster prevention, which requires planning. Determine potential hazards in your area. Use proper structural design and engineering practice. So if there are those who are still planning to build another school building, we have to consider the structural design and also abide with the laws, which shall give us an advantage even when the hazard or emergency situations this building can withstand. Evaluate structural soundness of buildings and important infrastructures. Rehabilitate if necessary. Prepare your workplace, your classroom. So it's not enough that we teach our learners, but also we have to consider their safety all the time. Prepare your office or your residence for the event. Strap heavy furniture to walls. Store breakable items, harmful chemicals, and flammable materials in lowermost shelves and secure firmly. Keep heavy materials in lower shelves. If there are gas tanks in schools, in our homes, turn off gas tanks when not in use. Check stability of hanging objects. Maintain an emergency survival bag. So that 72-hour survival bag must be secured not only in our offices, in our homes, but even in classroom setting. Familiarize yourself with your place of work, school building, and residence. Identify safe parts of the building. Elevator shafts, sturdy tables. Learn to use fire extinguishers, first aid kits, alarms, and emergency exits. So as school officials, educators, and we have learners under our care, be familiarized with this basic knowledge about emergency exits or in emergency situations, accessible, conveniently located, and prominently marked. If inside a structural sound building, stay there and observe this during the earthquake. Protect yourself from falling debris. Do this basic method of duck, cover, and hold. When we say duck, so you drop to the ground, cover your body to any sturdy tables that will protect you, and hold technique. And after that, when earthquake is gone, so immediately go to a safe place. After you have done this duck, cover, and hold method technique. If outside, move to an open area. Get away from power lines, post walls, and other structures. We can surely lead our students to stay away from buildings with glass planes. If on a mountain or near a steep hill slope, move away from escarpments. Landslides may happen during those events. When driving a vehicle, pull to the side of the road and stop. Do not attempt to cross bridges or overpass. Okay, that's an example of what had happened in Japan, 1995, when the expressway had collapsed. If along the shore and you feel a strong earthquake, immediately run away from the shore. It might cause tsunami or tidal wave. If inside an old and weak structure, take the fastest and safest way out. Get out calmly in an orderly manner. Do not rush to the exit. Use the stairs. Never use elevators. If your schools had elevators, so during earthquake, it's a no. Also check yourself and others for injury. Check surroundings. Clean up chemical spill, toxic flammable materials. Check for fire, and if any, have it controlled. Check water and electrical lines for defects. Unless you need emergency help, do not use telephone to call relatives and friends. Disaster prevention authorities may need the lines for emergency communications. And after that earthquake, do not use your car or drive around areas of damage. Rescue and relief operations need the road for mobility. Let us consider our agencies for those emergency responses. Help reduce the number of casualties from the earthquake. Don't enter partially damaged building. Strong aftershocks may cause this to collapse. And gather information and disaster prevention instruction from battery-operated radios. If you must evacuate your residence, leave a message stating where you are going. And again, take with you your emergency survival bag. Okay? So last year is the fire. Fire are of two kinds, beneficial, and the other is destructive. Beneficial because we use fire to cook our food. Destructive because fire can cause destruction to life, destruction to property, and destruction or damage to nature. So simple tips. You know how to use a portable fire extinguisher because we as educators can really pass this, our knowledge, and using this portable fire extinguisher to our students. Just remember this word, pass. This is basic. Pull the pin, then aim the nozzle to the base of the fire, then squeeze it to release the chemical, and then sway or sweep in order to put up the fire. So remember this word, pass. Okay. Now, in closing, my final note, I would like to quote again this another experts of their field. Dalai Lama wrote, "The heart of education is the education of the heart." Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher, also said, "Educating your mind without educating your heart is of no education at all." As educators, I would like to bring this to your memory, that we should not only educate the mind of our learners. TESOL emphasize that we also educate their hearts. Heart is important. The Greek word for heart is cardia. The medical terms used, such as cardiac, cardiovascular, cardiologist, were associated with this word cardia in Greek. In biblical context, cardia is used figuratively. It is considered to be as the core of one's being. It does not refer to the literal heart that pumps blood to our body. It refers to our own being, the core of one's being. In Matthew 15, verse 19, I would like you to remember this. Jesus explained, "For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander." If we fail to educate the heart of our learners, we failed in education. John Flavel, a Puritan writer, and I would like to quote, "The heart of man is his worst part before it is regenerated, and the best part afterward. The heart of man is the seat of principles and the fountain of actions. The eye of God is, and the eye of the Christian ought to be, principally fixed upon it. The greatest difficulty in conversion is to win the heart to God, and the greatest difficulty after conversion is to keep the heart with God." Let us love God with all our heart and make God a part of our life as educators. We cannot separate God from our teaching profession. Only God can use us mightily, powerfully, and effectively for His glory in this field of education. Because there may be learners under your care. Maybe some of them are thinking to commit suicide because of their problems at home. And if you have a sensitive heart as educator, you can save the life of your student. You can touch that life mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I am a lawyer by profession, but I am also a pastor by heart, the servant of God by heart. I worked in a church for more than 11 years, as what you have heard earlier. And I stopped because I want to prepare for my bar exam last 2021. I ended my work as a servant of God because I really wanted to become a lawyer. So I need to focus on my review and exert all my time. I stopped in my work in the church. But on February 2, 2022, 2 days before my bar exam, I tested positive. And there was a Supreme Court bar bulletin that says those who are tested positive cannot take the bar exam. I cried, but my wife told me that God has a purpose for everything. And she said, when we go back to Rojas City, Capiz, you continue to serve the Lord because that is your passion. So we started the church, another church here in Rojas City. We started teaching little children, reaching out in the community. We do not have a permanent building then. And during the rain, we just have to hide. But we impart education by heart and reaching out people in the community. People's hearts were changed and moved. And they said, Father God, we wanted to serve you and give our hearts to Jesus Christ. This February 20, 2024, we will now turn into 2 years. And from this church, I met wonderful family of Pastor Rodil and Ma'am GJ. God has a purpose for everything. My point here is, regardless of our profession, let us really make God a part of our lives, part of our hearts, because through God, we can be effective educators, not only educators of the mind, but educators of the heart. So thank you so much, and God bless everyone. Ma'am GJ?
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Attorney ALQUIZA. It is our deepest honor that you have brought us into this sphere of reflection on the legal knowledge and ethics in achieving an effective educational management in TESOL. Thank you so much again, Attorney. Now to our lovely participants, do you have any clarifications or questions to our speaker? Let me see if I could see some hands raising to speak out. Nobody? That means to say everything is clear. I would definitely agree. So now let me head you over to the awarding of the certificate. Okay. Certificate of recognition. This certificate is presented to Attorney Reverend Stephen ALQUIZA with, oh, sorry, hang on. With the topic legal knowledge and ethics. Their significance in effective educational management in TESOL. We hereby acknowledge the exceptional proficiency and dedication you demonstrated in the field of teaching English to speakers of other languages. Your exemplary skills in communication, linguistic expertise, and unwavering commitment to promoting language education have significantly contributed to the advancement of English language learning worldwide. Your impactful contributions as a TESOL speaker have inspired and empowered educators and learners alike, fostering cultural exchange, linguistics diversity, and cross-curricular understanding. Through your engaging presentations, workshops, and seminars, you have effectively shared valuable insights, innovative strategies, and best practices, enriching the professional development of educators and enhancing the language acquisition journey of learners across diverse contexts. In recognition of your outstanding achievements and invaluable contributions to the TESOL community, we proudly present this certificate as a token of our appreciation and admiration. According this 11th day of February 2024, signed Carmela M. Salenga, President, STREPS PRISM International, and Dr. Roxanne Ruby Camarosa, Executive Consultant, STREPS PRISM International. Thank you so much again, Pastor, and God bless you more.
God bless.
Right. So